Today is 151. It is Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, and we are going to be reading chapter 5. I wanted to give you an update. I'm going to be doing all of my assignments on Google Forms now. So bear with me, but I'm going to try to give you an example today of what it would look like. So there's going to be 4 different sections each day on your Google Forms. So in the first section, your video, the one that I'm making right now, will be placed right here. So when you click on the Google form, you'll click on the video, and then you can see the video right in there. I'll also place a link with chapter 5 there, or whatever chapter it is that we're reading for the day. You can follow along with the video, but if you ever want to look back at it, the chapter will be linked there as well. Then you'll press next, and the next section will be right here, and this was where your objective will be and your notes, okay? So we'll go through those notes. The next section will be the model that I do, which I'll show you how to do on here, but then I just took a picture, a screenshot of it, so that if you want to look back at that, you can, but again, that will also be done in the video. So as long as you're watching the video, this is just for reference. And then the final section will be where your practices. So I've been copying the part of the story that you would need to reread. And then here is the questions that you'll answer. So I'm going to go through this all today in the video while we're doing it. So you'll be able to figure it out. But we just want to make sure that all of the teachers are using the same types of documents, because some people have been confused about where to type or turning in blank assignments. And so we're just going to get rid of that by always having the Google Forms, because it just makes it easier. We know you know how to use Google Forms because you've been doing it for other classes. So this shouldn't make it, this should make it easier for everybody to get their work done and make sure that they're completing everything that their teachers ask them to. So we left off yesterday, or last week, on chapter 4 of Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. So we're going to pick up on chapter 5 today. I hope you guys are enjoying the story so far. I think that it's just such a funny story. I think Fudge is hilarious, and I hope you guys do too. So today we're going to be introduced to a few new characters, so we are going to talk about character traits. So our objective is Kipsters will be able to describe a character using their thoughts, words, and actions. Remember, character traits describe what a character's personality is like. So just like humans have character traits, maybe somebody's caring because they're always trying to help maybe their mom or their siblings, right? That might show that they're a caring person. Or if somebody's funny, they're always telling jokes, they're always making you laugh. So we look at characters' thoughts, words, and actions to determine what word we would use to describe them. So our steps are down here. Think about their thoughts, words, and actions in the story. Ask yourself, what do those characters' thoughts, words, and actions tell me about their personality? And then, as always, find your evidence to prove your answer. So today we're going to start chapter 5. I will stop when we get to our example and show you how I would fill it out because this is what yours is going to look like today. All right, chapter 5, the birthday bash. I got used to the way Fudge looked without his top front teeth. He looked like a very small first grader. Dr. Brown, our dentist, said he'd have to wait until he was 6 or 7 to get his grown-up teeth. I started calling him Fang because when he smiles, all you can see are the top 2 side teeth next to the big space. So it looks like he has fangs. My mother didn't like that. I want you to stop calling him Fang, she told me. What should I call him? I asked. Farley Drexel? Just plain Fudge will be fine, my mother said. What's wrong with Farley Drexel? I asked. How come you named him that if you don't like it? I like it fine, my mother said. But right now we call him Fudge. Not Farley, not Drexel, and not Fang. What's wrong with Fang? I asked. I think it sounds neat. Fang is an insult. Oh, come on, Mom. He doesn't even know what a fang is. But I know, Peter, and I don't like it. Okay. I promise never to call my brother Fang again. Secretly, whenever I look at him, I think it. My brother, Fang Hatcher. Nobody can stop me from thinking. My mind is my own. Fudge is going to be 3 years old. My mother said that he should have a birthday with some friends. He plays with 3 other little kids who live in our building. There's Jenny, Ralph, and Sam. My mother invited them to Fudge's party. Grandma said she'd come over to help. My father couldn't make it. He had Saturday business appointment. I wanted to go to Jimmy Fargo's, but my mother said she needed me to supervise the games. The kids were invited from 1 until 2:30. That's only an hour and a half, my mother reminded me. That's not so bad, is it, Peter? I don't know yet, I told her. Ask me later. What do you guys think? Do you think it's going to be good or bad for Peter? Based on what I know about fudge, I would say I think it's going to be bad. Let's find out. The kitchen table was set up for the party. The cloth and napkins and paper plates and cups all matched. They had pictures of Superman on them. Right before the party time, Grandma tried to change Fudge into his new suit, but he screamed his head off about it. No suit, no suit, no, no, no. My mother tried to reason with him. It's your birthday, Fudgy. All your friends are coming. You want to look like a big boy, don't you? While she was talking to him, she managed to get him into his shirt and pants, but he wouldn't let her put on his shoes. He kicked and carried on until my mother and grandmother were both black and blue. They finally decided as long as he was in his suit, his feet didn't matter. So he wore his bedroom slippers. Ralph arrived first. He's really fat, and he isn't even 4 years old. He doesn't say much either. He grunts and grabs a lot, though. Usually his mouth is stuffed full of something. So the first thing Ralph did was wander into our kitchen. He looked around for something to eat. But Grandma was guarding the place. She kept telling him, no, no, must wait until the other children come. Jenny arrived next. She was wearing little white gloves and party shoes. She even carried a pocketbook. Besides that, she had on dirty jeans and an old sweater. Her mother apologized for her clothes, but said that she couldn't do anything with Jenny lately, especially since she had taken to biting. What does she bite? I asked, thinking about furniture, toys, or stuff like that. She bites people, Jenny's mother said, but you don't have to worry about it unless her teeth go through the skin. Otherwise, it's perfectly safe. I thought, poor old Fudge. He can't even bite back since he doesn't have any top front teeth. I looked at Jenny. She seemed innocent. It was hard to believe that she was a vampire. Sam came last. He carried a big present for Fudge, but he was crying. It's just like a stage he's going through, his mother explained. Everything scares him, especially birthday parties. But he'll be fine, won't you, Sam? Sam grabbed onto his mother's leg and screamed, "Take me home! Take me home!" Somehow, Sam's mother untangled herself from Sam's grip and left. So at 1:05, we were ready to begin. We had an eater, a biter, and a crier. I thought that 2:30 would never come. I also thought my mother was slightly crazy for dreaming up a party in the first place. Doesn't Fudge have any normal friends? I whispered. There's nothing wrong with Fudgy's friends, my mother whispered back. All small children are like that. So pause there. So this is starting to kind of give us an idea of what this party is going to be like. We just got introduced to 3 new characters, and all of these characters are kids with little bits of problems. So one eats everything, one bites everything, and the other one cries all the time. So if we want to predict how this party is going to go now, use that to make your prediction. Is it going to go good? Is it not going to go very well? Let's find out. Grandma got them seated around the kitchen table. She put a party hat on each kid's head. Sam screamed, "Get it off! Get it off!" But the others wore their hats and didn't complain. My mother snapped a picture of them with her new camera. Then Grandma turned off the lights, and my mother lit the candles on Fudge's cake. It had chocolate frosting and big yellow roses. I led the singing of Happy Birthday. My mother carried the cake across the kitchen to the party table and set it down in front of Fudge. Sam cried, "Too dark, too dark!" So Grandma had to turn on the kitchen lights before Fudge blew out his candles. When he was finished blowing, he reached out and grabbed the rose off his cake. He shoved it into his mouth. "Oh, Fudge," my mother said, "look what you did." But Grandma said, "It's his birthday. He can do whatever he wants." So Fudge reached over and grabbed a second rose. I guess Fat Ralph couldn't stand seeing Fudge eat those yellow roses because he grabbed one too. By that time, the cake looked pretty messy. My mother, finally coming to her senses, took the cake away and sliced it up. Each kid got a Dixie cup, a small piece of cake, and some milk. But Jenny hollered, "Where's my rose? Want one too?" Because her slice of birthday cake didn't happen to have one. My mother explained that the roses were only decorations and there weren't enough to go around. Jenny seemed to accept that, but when Grandma stood over her to help her open her Dixie, Jenny bit her on the hand. She bit me, Grandma cried. Did it break the skin? My mother asked. No, I don't think so, Grandma said, checking. Good. Then it's nothing to worry about, my mother told her. Grandma went to the bathroom to put some medicine on it anyway. She wasn't taking any chances. Ralph was the first one to finish his food. More, 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 he sang, holding up the empty plate. I don't think you should give him any more, I whispered to my mother. Look how fat he is now. Oh, Peter, this is a party. Let him eat whatever he wants. Okay, I said. Why should I care how fat he gets? My mother served Ralph a second piece of cake. He threw up right after he finished it. Me and Grandma took the kids into the living room while my mother cleaned up the mess. Grandma told Fudge he could open his presents while his friends watched. Jenny brought him a musical Jack-in-the-Box. When you turn the handle around it, pop goes the weasel. When you reach the part of the song about Pop, the top opens and the funny clown jumps out. Fudge loved it. He clapped his hands and laughed, but Sam started to scream, No, no, no more, take it away. He hid his face in his hands, and he wouldn't look up until Grandma promised to take the Jack-in-the-Box in the other room. Fudge opened Ralphie's present next. It was a little wind-up car that ran all over the floor. I kind of liked it myself. So did Ralph, because he grabbed it away from Fudge and said, Mine! No, Fudge shouted, mine! When my mother heard the racket, she ran in from the kitchen. She explained to Ralph that he had bought the car to Fudge because it was his birthday. But Ralph wouldn't listen. I guess my mother was afraid he might throw up again, and this time on the living room rug. So she begged Fudge to let Ralph play with the car for a few minutes. But Ralph kept screaming it was his car. So Fudge started to cry. Finally, my mother took the car away and said, Let's see what Sam brought you. Fudge liked that idea. He forgot about the little car and he ripped the paper and the ribbon off of Sam's package. It turned out to be a big picture dictionary, the same kind the Yarbies brought me a couple of months ago. Fudge got mad when he saw it. No, he yelled. No more book. He threw it across the room. Fudge, that's terrible, my mother said. You mustn't do that to the nice book. No book. Sam cried. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like my present. I want to go home. I want to go home. All right, we're going to pause right there. So now we're going to go to our example. So I'm going to do the example on a different form. And what I did down here for you was I took a picture of it and I put it in here so you can always look back at it. So I'm going to show you how I would fill it out. So first, I would reread the section of the story. So in my head, I'm going to reread this whole section of the story. Fudge liked that idea. He forgot about the little car as he ripped the paper and the ribbon off Sam's package. It turned out to be a big picture dictionary, the same kind the Arby's brought me a few months ago. Fudge got mad when he saw it. No, he yelled. No more book. He threw it across the room. Fudge, that's terrible, my mother said. You mustn't do that to the nice book. No book, Fudge said. Sam cried. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like my present. I want to go home. I want to go home. Grandma tried to comfort Sam while my mother picked up the book. She gathered the wrapping paper and ribbons and the card together. Fudge didn't even look at any of the birthday cards. Oh well, he can't read. I guess it doesn't make any difference. So we're looking for what word best describes Fudge's friend Sam at the birthday party. So, based on what I see here, first I'm going to look at what did Sam say, think, and do. So in this part of the story, Sam's crying because Fudge doesn't like his present. I also remember from other parts of the story, he was also crying. He cried when the lights got turned off. If I look up here, I'm trying to find where it was. Yeah, when the lights were turned off, he cried. He also cried right when he got there that he wanted to go home. And he cried one other time too. There was another time he cried, and I can't remember what it was. But basically, Sam cries a lot. So we're going to look and see what word would describe somebody whose words and their actions are crying and saying they want to go home. Is that someone who's silly? Like, are they funny? Sensitive, like are they kind of emotional? Rude, are they mean? Or talkative, do they talk too much? So I would say definitely not talkative and definitely not silly. So it's either are they emotional, sensitive, or are they rude, are they mean? So he's not trying to be mean to anyone, so he's being sensitive. So all I have to do is click that. Now I need to find my evidence to support my answer, and I'm actually just going to copy and paste this from right here. This is the evidence, so I would write in the text, it says, and then I would do my quotations, write my evidence, and that's all I need to do. Then at the end of it, I would press submit and submit my answer. So right here, I have that exact example in the chart for you. So we're going to keep reading, but you're going to do the same thing when you get to section 4. So section 4 has your turn. You can reread this section. This one's pretty long. So you might want to like read the question and then go back to this part of the story to find your answer. And then you don't need to write your evidence in. You're doing multiple choice. Tomorrow we're going to talk about evidence, and that's when you're going to start writing some of your evidence in. But when you're done with this, you'll just press submit or send or whatever it says on your screen. Sorry, mine's a little bit different than yours is, but I know that you guys have been doing it in other classes, so you'll know how to submit it. Awesome. So let's keep going and let's find out what happens next. So we just ended, let me find where we just ended. We just ended right here where Sam's crying. He wants to go home. So let's see what happens next. They've opened the gifts. They've eaten the cake. Let's see what the next thing is. We're right here, actually. Peter, my mother said, let's start the games. Now, quick. I checked the time. I hoped the party was almost over, but no, it was only 1:30. Still an hour to go. I went into my room where I had blown up a lot of balloons. My mother has this party book, and it says 3-year-olds like to dance around with balloons. When I got back to the living room, Mom started the record player, and I handed each kid a balloon. But they just stood there looking at me. I thought, either the guy who wrote that party book is crazy, or I am. Show them how, Peter, my mother said. Take a balloon and demonstrate. I felt like one of the world's great living fools dancing around with a balloon, but it worked. As soon as the kids saw me doing it, they started dancing too. And the more they danced, the more they liked it, until Jenny's balloon popped. That nearly scared Sam right out of his mind. He started yelling and crying. Fortunately, I had blown up 24 balloons. I was hoping they'd dance around the rest of the afternoon. Fudge got the idea of jumping up and down on the furniture. The others liked that too, so instead of dancing with their balloons, that's what they did. And soon they were running from room to room and yelling and laughing and having a great time. Then the doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Rudder. She lives in the apartment right under us. She wanted to know what was going on. She said it sounded like her ceiling was about to crash in on her any second. My mother explained that Fudge was having a little birthday party, and wouldn't she like to stay for a piece of cake? Sometimes my mother is really clever. So Grandma entertained Mrs. Rudder in the kitchen while Fudge and his buddies jumped up and down on his new bed. It was delivered this morning. Fudge hasn't even slept in it yet. So naturally, when my mother found out what they were up to, she was mad. Stop it right now, she said. New bed, big boy, Fudge told her. Was he proud? You won't have a new big boy bed for long if you don't stop jumping on it, my mother told him. I know. Let's all sit down on the floor and hear a nice story. My mother selected a picture book from Fudge's bookshelf. I heard that one, Jenny said when she saw the cover. All right, my mother told her. Let's hear this one. She held up another book. I heard that one too, Jenny said. I think my mother was starting to lose her patience, but she chose a third book and said, well, we'll all enjoy this one even if we know it by heart. And if we do know it by heart, well, we can say it together. That's just what Jenny did. And when my mother skipped a page by mistake, Jenny was right there to remind her. If you ask me, my mother felt like biting Jenny by that time. When the story was over, it was 2:00 and Ralph was sound asleep on the floor. My mother told me to put him up on Fudge's new bed while she took the rest of the children back to the living room. I tried and tried, but I couldn't lift Ralph. He must weigh a ton. So I left him sleeping on Fudge's floor and closed the door so he wouldn't hear any noise. On my way back to the living room, I wished the others would fall asleep too. Peter, my mom suggested, why don't you show them Dribble? Mom, Dribble's my pet. You don't go around using a pet to entertain a bunch of little kids. Didn't my mother know that? Peter, please, my mother said. We've still got half an hour left, and I don't know what to do with them anymore. Dribble! Fudge hollered. Dribble, dribble, dribble! I guess Sam and Jenny liked the way that sounded because they started to shout, Dribble, 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 even though they didn't know what they were talking about. Oh, all right, I said. I'll show you Dribble. But you've got to promise me to be very quiet. You mustn't make a sound. You might scare him, okay? They all said, okay. My mother went into the kitchen to chat with Grandma and Mrs. Rudder. I went into my room and came back carrying Dribble in his bowl. I put my finger over my lips to remind Fudge and his friends to be quiet. It worked. At first, nobody said a word. I put Dribble down on the table. Fudge and Sam and Jenny stood over his bowl. Oh, Turtle, Jenny said. Yes, Dribble's a turtle. My turtle, I said in a soft voice. See, Fudge whispered. They can all see, I told Fudge. Nice turtle, Sam said. I wondered why he wasn't afraid this time. What does Dribble do? Jenny asked. Do? He doesn't do anything special, I said. He's a turtle. He does turtle things. Like what? Jenny asked. What was with this kid anyway? Well, I said, he swims around a little and he sleeps on his rocks and he eats. Does he make? Jenny asked. Make, I said. Make a tinkle. Oh, that. Well, sure, I guess so. Jenny laughed. So did Sam and Fudge. I make tinkles too. Want to see? Jenny asked. No, I said. See? Fudge laughed, pointing at Jenny. Jenny had a big smile on her face. Next thing I knew, there was a puddle on the rug. Mom, I hollered, come quick. My mother dashed in from the kitchen. What, Peter? What is it? Just look at what Jenny did, I said. What is that? My mother asked, eyeing the puddle. She made on the floor, I said, and on purpose. Oh, Jenny, my mother cried, you didn't. Did too, Jenny said. That was very naughty, my mother told her. You come with me. She scooped up Jenny and carried her to the bathroom. After that, my mom mopped up the puddle. Finally, the doorbell rang. It was 2:30. The party was over. I could hardly believe it. I was beginning to think it would never end. First, Ralph's mother came. She had to wake him up to get him to the apartment. I guess she couldn't even carry him. Next, Jenny's mother came. Mom gave her Jenny's wet pants and a baggie. That was all she had to do. Jenny's mother was plenty embarrassed. Sam's mother came last, but he didn't want to go home. Now that he was used to us, I guess he liked us. He cried, more party, more! Another time, his mother said, dragging him out of the apartment by the arm. My mother flopped down in a chair. Grandma brought her 2 aspirins and a glass of water. Here, dear, she said. Maybe these will help. My mother swallowed the pills. She held her head. 3 is kind of young for a party, I told my mother. Peter Warren Hatcher? My mother began. Yes, I asked. You are absolutely right. I flopped down next to my mother. She put her arm around me, and then we both watched Fudge work in his new Jack-in-the-Box. Later, when my father came home, he said, How did Fudge's party go? My mother and I looked at each other, and we laughed. So, obviously, the party didn't go very well. You guys now are to do, we should be moving on, so you can look back at the objective if you need to. You can look back at the model, and then you are to do your practice and submit your answer. All right, I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.